Hello, my name's Jack McWalter. Thanks for joining us. Today what I want to talk about is the Midtown rezoning that happened, that was discussed in the City Council meeting. And for the first time, we were shown 94 pages for these three ordinances that were released. And I believe that nobody on the City Council read these because they would have had a much different response than what they did. So let me read you a statement as to where I stand on this. I find it outrageous to find out last week that outsiders are rewriting our ordinances to their liking and to our detriment, behind closed doors in secrecy for years. Whoever voted to allow this to happen should be fired. If this was Washington, words like collusion, obstruction, special investigator would be thrown around. Now what I'm going to do is give you the landscape of where we're at on this whole deal. Several years ago, when the Tri-Rail station was put in, they put in planned mobility districts. You can see the lines here as best I could. You know, you have Yamato, Clintmore Road, and other roads over here. But what's happened so far, which is actually pretty good, if you ask Mr. Peter Baranoff, is that here's the location of these developments. You know, 300 development, 300 person development over here, 300 units over here, 200 here, 100 here, 100 here. So visualize this is what's working in the northwest section. Now what's happened is three developers have come down and taken over our city hall, and they're rewriting the ordinances for developments down here, and it's called the Southwest Planned Mobility Districts. You know, this is Glades Road up here. This is Verde Trail South down here. This is Military Trail, which is very, very important in the scheme of this whole thing. But what they've also added is that what's something called the transit-oriented districts, which allows them under those regs to put in things as small as 500 square foot apartments, 145 foot buildings. But the way they wrote this ordinance is that they technically could put 2,500 units in the red sections here, as I outlined. And excuse me for doing a clumsy job on this, as I'm not an architect. But the way it's written is if the mall, which they said 650 units could go in there, if they don't exercise that right within 4 years, they can put it back into the something called pool. So technically they could put 2,500 units in this area, which could be up to 4,000 people in cars. And what they also outline here is this mystery Tri-Rail station. They're basing their whole concept of rewriting our ordinances based on the same logic that was used up in the northwest section, which is a Tri-Rail. By the way, what I'd like you to look is go over here. This is basically the downtown area where there's 1,200 units so far, and looking for a lot more development. But that's a whole different issue. Let's, Royal Palm is not part of this deal yet. So let me focus on the first point I want to make here is developers are rewriting the ordinances. I talked to an urban planner in California. He told me he thought that was illegal. Hey, you can't have outsiders writing ordinances. I mean, why are we allowing this to happen? Why are we allowing developers dictating to our city planners what the orders should look like to their liking? The next thing I want to focus on, this station is a lie. There's no station set to go in there. I mean, it'd be nice if a station went in there, but I don't know of any station. So why would we justify 4,000 people moving into a tiny spot, 1/10 the size of the Northwest District? I don't understand why we want to do this. The next thing that came out of this is the staff is being bullied. I found 29 issues involved in the 94 pages that I read, and let me go over some of these issues, which I think are pretty important. The city staff disagrees with the developers when they rewrote these ordinances. They sense no station, no support for 2,500 units, planned mobility, and transit-oriented districts. They don't see that if there's no train station, why we should even do this. Developer insists on using the words like planned, funded, and committed, when the staff wants the wording planned, funded, and under construction. I found this to be outrageous. Developers want these districts without paying for road improvements. I find that to be outrageous. They don't even want to pay for road improvements. The city has no plan for a shuttle, yet developers are assuming and wrote in these ordinances that the city would be paying for the shuttle. Developers want changes to setbacks, heights, 145 feet, open space, parking, etc. And many, many other changes that are just, I find that to be outrageous. They want to limit the rights of other property owners. Well, they're trying to tell the mall people who don't even want any part of this that if you don't build something in 4 years, we're going to take away what the 650 units that we're allocating under this ordinance. All changes would apply to the northwest areas. That's outrageous. All future planned mobility developments districts in the city. The developers refuse to present conceptual, site, or master plans. That's a showstopper as far as a city staff is concerned. The staff challenges the developer's claim, even if no station still complies with comprehensive plan and concurrency regulations and traffic analysis and all that. That's just a sample of what the city planners disagree with in these documents. Now, what I want to talk about is the developers. We have a developer that are challenging. They're threatening not only people that are asking tough questions over in Paradise Palms. They're threatening newspaper reporters by escorting them out of the rooms. They don't allow me to go to the meetings, yet they say they're unfairly treated because they said they've had 15 public meetings, and that's unfair. My view is they've had 15 private meetings with individuals in the Planning and Zoning Board, the City Council. My view is that they're being unfair to the citizens of this city, and we got to stop this. So in effect, what we're doing, what this developer wants to do is put 4,000 transient people in small apartments in extremely high density, no parking, etc. I think that's wrong. I grew up in a tenement in the city of Chicago. You put 4,000 people in an area, you're going to have escalating crime. It's going to be very serious. We're going to have traffic jams that are so bad that it'll be just unlivable for all the neighbors in surrounding areas such as Paradise Palms, Verde, Boca Bath and Tennis. And one thing that they don't talk about is called unintended consequences are kids. We're going to have 500 kids, maybe 300, maybe 400, maybe 500. It doesn't matter. Our schools are busting loose right now, and we have to bus 400 kids out of Calusa up to Delray, and there's no plans to put in new schools. And obviously, there's going to be no parking. The one plus thing that happened in the city council meeting last week is that Ms. O'Rourke got it right. This is a city planning issue. We need to decide, why are we doing this? Why are we creating future problems for ourselves? Why?
We have to take the city planning seriously. It's not a question of not doing it. It's a question of how we do it.
We have to answer those questions before we go any further, and we have to get developers out of the room. We got the city planners have to be and have to take over what's really going on. The city is demanding site and master plans. The developers refusing to show them. In fact, they showed a development from Fort Worth, Texas, that was absurd. They're saying that this is a master plan.
What?
Well, we should refuse to allow them to just even go to the Planning and Zoning Board until they comply with at least minimum requirements. I have some urban planner friends, and what they told me, they looked at the demographics of this area, and they felt that you could put a planned mobility district in there, just one, in that little area, and it could possibly support 400 units, possibly. In summary, here's my thoughts. Mr. Brown and the city plannings are the key. The moral issues to do what is right. City planners cannot approve these ordinances. They need to take charge and tell the truth. If not, our city will be destroyed by extreme overdevelopment. Thank you.